Last season, the Raptors finally fully embraced a rebuild, starting a new era of the franchise, with Scottie Barnes, Barrett, and Emanuel Quickley being the foundational pieces of this new era. The young trio of BBQ got some decent run last season, playing just shy of 440 minutes together. Over those minutes, the trio posted a plus 2.9 net rating, which is definitely solid and a good place to build from. Now, heading into the first full season of the young trio's time in Toronto, here are the biggest questions surrounding each of them. The first of the Raptors' young trio that I want to talk about is probably the most important piece, Scottie Barnes. Barnes had a complete breakout season in 2023-2024, being named to his first All-Star team. One of the most significant driving factors behind this was his dramatic improvement from three. But how good of a shooter is he really, is my question. During his first two seasons in the league, Barnes shot 30% and 28% from deep on low volume. However, Scottie took a massive leap as a shooter last season, knocking down 34% of his outside shots, a 6% increase from the previous year. During the first 40 games of the season, however, Barnes was just a straight-up elite three-point shooter, finding the net on 38% of his threes while taking over 5 per game. Good percentage on good volume. However, this didn't carry over for the entire season, with Barnes hitting a massive cold streak from deep over the last 20 games, shooting below 24% from deep. I think there was a multitude of factors behind this. One, the overall team was a lot worse the last 20 games, with guys like Pascal Siakam and OG Anunoby not being around, as well as the team dealing with injuries with Jakob Poeltl being out. So this was a more increased load on Scottie. He had to take more pull-ups and do more self-creation, which definitely hurt his numbers, but that doesn't explain the massive 14% drop from the first 40 games to the last 20 games. One good indicator of shooting touch is free throw percentage, which Barnes has increased each of his 3 years in the league, hitting a pretty good 78% last season. How good of a shooter Barnes is remains to be seen, but the Raptors are betting he's closer to the shooter he was over the first 40 games of last year, and if he is, the sky's the limit for the young forward who can do a bit of everything on the court. The next member of the young trio that I want to talk about is Emanuel Quickley. Like Scottie, Emanuel Quickley got a massive new contract this offseason, signaling that the Raptors have a lot of faith in the young guard. And it's not hard to see why the Raptors like IQ so much. He's an elite shooter, being able to pull up from deep with no hesitation, and knock down catch and shoot threes at a high clip. IQ also took a massive leap as a playmaker with Toronto, more than doubling his assist numbers compared to what he was doing with the Knicks. But the one part of IQ's game that was lacking with the Raptors was his inside the arc scoring. My question is, can he improve at it? We have to look at his time with the Knicks, where Quickley found a lot of his 2-point buckets from the mid-range or using floaters closer to the rack. With the Knicks, Quickley shot 46% on mid-range jumpers and shot 47% from floater range, aka 3 to 10 feet. In Toronto, these numbers completely tanked down to 32% on mid-range jumpers and 37% from floater range. This can be explained with Quickley's workload being much higher in Toronto and a lot of below average players surrounding him for the back half of the season. But Quickley still needs to step up as an inside the arc scorer for him to live up to his new contract being $35 million a year. I think Quickley can get back to what he was doing with the Knicks. He put a lot of work in this summer. He looks a lot stronger, and I think he really understands that he has to work on that to take his game to the next level. But it remains to be seen how good he can actually be as an inside the arc scorer. The last member of the young trio that I want to talk about is Barrett. Barrett played the best basketball of his career after he was traded to the Raptors last season. In the 32 games with Toronto, Barrett scored 22 points a night while shooting a scorching 39% from deep on 4 attempts per game. This is Barrett's best percentage from deep since his sophomore season, and while 32 games isn't a small sample size, it certainly isn't an entire season's worth. And with the Knicks, Barrett shot 6% worse on 3, connecting on just 33% of his outside shots across the first 26 games. For the entire 2023-24 season, Barrett knocked down 36% of his threes, which is definitely respectable, but not as good as he needs to be a star. When RJ is shooting the ball well from deep, the rest of his game opens up and he becomes a legitimate offensive threat that teams have to watch out for. The problem is, Barrett has had other stretches in seasons where his 3-ball looks great, only for it not to carry over next season. I have gone in depth into RJ's shooting with the Raptors, and I believe he will be just as good or close to as good as he was last season in this coming year, but he still has to prove me right this year. If his shot is real, RJ is the perfect third piece for this Raptors young trio. The season is less than a month away, and hopefully we get answers to all of these questions soon. If you want a more in-depth video on RJ and Quickley, they're going to be linked in the description. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a great day.